Join me as I sit down with Jas Kirk, founder of the Jas Kirk Life Wellness brand and the podcast Comfortable Conversations.
My name is Jas Kirk. I founded Comfortable Conversations, which our theme is Discomfort is the Way Home. In addition to having comfortable conversations, I run my own strategic advisory firm where we do strategic partnerships as well as brand storytelling with corporations and creatives and individuals. But the theme of our firm is that wellness is actually a business strategy, and we help you incorporate that into your business initiatives and plans. I've had 8 years of doing this work, of working with over 150 big brand names or companies and organizations. And it's a passion of mine. I didn't know it was going to be my purpose alongside my corporate career. And then this year, I kind of leaped into let me start my own thing. And last year, I started the podcast on discomfort. So I grew through my own discomfort to get to where I am. And I believe that we all continue to graduate to different levels of discomfort as we go on.
Jas will be sharing her experiences embracing discomfort and vulnerability, as well as her journey into helping businesses elevate its employees' well-being.
Even with my strategic advisory firm, I wasn't trying to have a strategic advisory. I just knew I was consulting and doing this kind of X kind of work. And then it was like pivot, but I remained open to be able to. And then the more I worked on things, I was like, is this a thing? And it was like, absolutely. I may be the individual who's like, maybe stop seeking purpose in the sense of it's somewhere outside of you and just recognize you're intentional and you're purposeful. And it really radiates and gravitates to you, like the thing that you're supposed to do. The business was essentially building itself when I had my corporate career, but I was so in tune with the passion that the business woman didn't come out yet. It took for me to the discomfort and having a podcast for it to start to say, hey girl, it's time.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Before we get started, if you could hit the like, subscribe, or follow button on whichever platform you're consuming today's show. Jas, thanks so much for joining the show today. I'm very excited for the conversation. You know, I think discomfort is a much needed topic in, I think, our culture of comfort at the moment, and our crisis of comfort at the moment. And so I'm excited to share with the audience your story, your podcast, the things you cover. It's been very informative for me, and I'm excited to share the conversation with the audience today. But before we dive into that stuff and more about what your show is about, I just wanted to give the audience a little insight view into who Jas is. So if you wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourself and a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be on, Dan. My name is Jas Kirk. I founded Comfortable Conversations, which our theme is Discomfort is the Way Home. In addition to having comfortable conversations, I run my own strategic advisory firm where we do strategic partnerships as well as brand storytelling with corporations and creatives and individuals. But the theme of our firm is that wellness is actually a business strategy, and we help you incorporate that into your business initiatives and plans. I've had like 8 years of doing this work, of working with over 150 big brand names or companies and organizations. And it's a passion of mine. I didn't know it was going to be my purpose. Like I said, it was a passion alongside my corporate career. And then this year, I kind of leaped into let me start my own thing. And last year, I started the podcast on discomfort. So I grew through my own discomfort to get to where I am. And I believe that we all continue to graduate to different levels of discomfort as we go on.
Yeah, it's actually going to be one of my first questions was, I've been reflecting on my own level of experiences with discomfort and how that promotes so much growth throughout various times in my life. And I guess my question for you was how has your relationship with discomfort evolved over different phases or points in your life to help you arrive at this moment that you're at now?
Well, discomfort looks like a valley. It looks like the thing that you hate the most. And it's the experience that you're like, please get me out of here the quickest, fastest way possible. And early on, I used to see, I didn't know what it was, but I used to say, I hate this. And then I had to learn how to grow through that process and understand if this is here for however long it is, what do I need and who do I need to become? And it helped me move through that much faster. And now, as I've done lots of research on discomfort prior to starting a podcast on that theme, I did research to better understand like this comes up and everybody says like you got to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but it's like yeah, until discomfort is the thing that you dislike the most, until it comes in and shows its face and is a mirror of you. And you have this beautiful choice to say, I see you, but I'm going to decide to change. And so, if anything, discomfort has educated me in a way to take my power back within myself to be able to evolve into this new the highest version of myself. And in my discovery for my own life, I started to meet people and ask that question, like, what discomfort led you to this version of yourself? And I didn't know, like, one, faith is probably the number one theme that comes out of discomfort. For I've had over 35 guests, and every single guest talks about faith in some capacity, and it's usually the first thing. Creativity is a huge thing with discomfort. It's healing. When you lean into your creativity, it ignites healing for you. It ignites the fun and joy on the journey. Um, fear is something that is huge on this journey because discomfort essentially is a mirror of those fears. What else is a theme that we typically see? I think those are the top. Curiosity will usually get you into discomfort, and you're like, oh, what have I done? But those questions are so good. So if you're asking what if questions to pull yourself out of it, but also the curiosity helps you explore yourself, your purpose and where you are. So it keeps you going. So it's like it may feel like darkness, it may feel like, unbearable. But I assure you, and I said this once to someone, if you're in the dark, just turn the light on. We think we have to run towards the light. It's in the distance. And the reality is just turn the light on.
And so when you say that, just turn the light on, what does that look like for someone?
Community.
What are the typical, I guess, uncomfortable things people are dealing with that you encounter through the conversations on your show or just in general?
I would say you turn the light on and it's through community. That is an unwavering theme of help. You got to ask for help. Yeah. And it's so uncomfortable. It's vulnerability on a new level. It's exposing shame, and it's allowing yourself to be seen. And community is where healing truly does begin. You don't need these massive hundreds and hundreds of people. I often share it with individuals. Community is sometimes one other person. Yeah. And that one becomes two, and two becomes five, and five becomes 10. But it builds this level of trust that you know the people you can go to say help in those dark, not even just dark moments, right? Because discomfort can be losing your job, losing your sense of safety and security. Discomfort can be the grief of a family member. So discomfort meets every single individual, and it's this perseverance that we're growing through. And it's hard in the moment to say, this is going to end. It won't last forever. The highs, aren't forever, and the lows, they're not forever. So you just don't get too high and don't get too low. And if you can trail on this path of like you're good in the middle, the messy middle that everyone's like, no, I want to be at the goal already. But the joy is in the journey. And so we're all going to experience it. People may experience financial hardships or moving or, like I said, loss and grief. Everyone experiences, but it's how do you get through that?
Yeah. I want to understand a little bit more your journey to this place. You mentioned the corporate work you were doing, and maybe some of this was kind of concurrently a passion project. But like, where did the genesis of your interest in this topic, I guess, start cultivating from a passion standpoint?
It really came from 4 or 5 years ago now. Someone shared to me, like, you should have a podcast. And I was like, what? What do I talk about? Like, this was an internal question, right? People hear me speak and they're so inspired and motivated. And I'm really great at that. Like, a lot of times I will have a conversation and someone's like, oh my God, we should have been recording that. I wish I was taking notes the entire time. And so this spark, this curiosity comes up of, you should do this. But fear came in and I was like, nobody wants to hear my voice. Nobody wants to hear me have these kind of questions. And that took me on my own journey of, why are we afraid to speak? What are you hiding behind? This is a gift here. How can we share it? And so I found myself trying to do it in a way that was like comfortable, but I told myself it was uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're not in our comfort zone, but genuinely I was in my comfort zone. And it was along that journey of saying, okay, I'm finally ready to do a podcast, but then you got to sit with, what's the title? And that was like, okay, I want to make it fun and cozy and comfortable. So comfortable conversations came about, but I found myself like, I really want to talk about the uncomfortable topics, because people would come to me and talk about things that they felt so much shame and blame or just negativity around. Or when we're out, I would be out with friends and they would just share their deepest stories. And I'm just like, oh my God. Or I could sit at the bar and someone just like unpack. And so I found that I had the ability to hold space. And I kid you not, discomfort, the word specifically, would find me. I would be looking at a book and it would be like, I would feel it in my body, like something is here. And so 3 years ago, I just started to journal, and I would like study, and I would just keep coming back to discomfort. And so when I started the podcast, it was like the day before my first guest. I literally came up with the question, what discomfort led you to this version of yourself? And every single guest, I'm able to ask that. And I was like, your theme is discomfort. And what podcast is doing discomfort? But Brene Brown does a lot of research on discomfort and it being a disruptor and it being this catalyst. And so there's so much research in the mental health space, in the health space in general, that's like sharing with us like discomfort is truly a gift. Give yourself enough time and you'll see it's a beauty on the other side.
I love the references to Brene Brown. I actually, it was interesting because I was listening to your show the other day. You had an orthopedic surgeon on.
Yes, Dr.
And yeah, It was an amazing story. And then you brought up something out of the conversation that referenced Brene Brown. And then like that next day, I heard Brene Brown on a different podcast, and she was talking about a lot of the same stuff. How, you can't have courage without vulnerability, and fear isn't always the thing that stops us from being courageous or vulnerable. It's the armor we put up because of that fear that stops us from going to do these brave and bold things. And I've loved her work. So I'm greatly, I love that you have that similarity there in terms of research and exploring her topics. I guess, why do you think people resist the uncomfortable? What gets in the way?
It's not pretty. It's not the cool aesthetic. It's not Instagram worthy. It's not social media tweetable. It is exposing the version of yourself that you haven't become, and you're still trying to embrace, I love him, I love her, just as they are. And it's the transformation. You see it, you feel it before you see it. And it's like, how do I explain this to people? Like, I know something's happening, but I can't put it into words, and they can't physically see it. And it like I said, it's just not pretty work. You can try to make it seem pretty, but then you mask the beauty of what it really is. And so my goal is to, and through my podcast, I'm able to do this, of show people the other side. When you have a successful orthopedic surgeon, or a successful businessman who has millions now because they went through that discomfort, it helps you see, like, I'm going to make it to the other side because I'm at this exact point. So it's those stories that help you see, like, when you do see the tale of two fears, and it's either the fear of staying the same or even the fear of being different, but you hear someone share their story and you're like, I can relate to that. And this is how successful that person is. And they leaned in, and it took a day for the igniting to happen, but the process only took 3 months. Am I willing to suffer where I am, or go through the process in 3 months or 1 year and be transformed? And at that point, it becomes a choice. And to me, it's an easy choice, but when you're in the thick of it, it's like, ooh, but it's just not pretty work. But we all need to know it needs to happen.
When you were telling the story of your friends who encouraged you to take this podcast, there was some self-limiting beliefs I heard, and some of that. It's like, oh, who wants to hear my voice? Something to that effect. How did you overcome some of those self-limiting beliefs? I know that's something that I think everyone deals with on some level at various points in their life. And so I'm wondering if there's any advice you could give for someone who might be battling those same inner critics.
At the end of the day, you do have to just start. The biggest thing I was able to do is recognize day one Jas, first episode Jas, first episode whatever, won't be 50th. So instead of focusing on the perfection, because me and perfection are like besties at times. And most people, it is like, it's your inner critic who's like, how dare you? But I started to focus on different aspects. How can I lean into progress? What version of me do I wish to be? Like, I want to create and put out really great work. What does that look like? And how can I be just consistent? I created habits that allowed me, even if self-doubt, even if imposter syndrome, no matter what comes in, I have a system in place that says, no, we keep going. And you also, through community, have support of individuals who remind you who you are, remind you of the journey you're on, remind you of how awesome you are, but you need that foundation. And so for me, I've worked on my foundation, that if I get 10 views, I'm still proud of the work that I produce with my team. And the individual who is willing to show up and share their story is enough for me. So I kind of got away from all of the external validations and centered in on my why. Like, this was important to me. If the podcast gets monetized or not, if I have guests or not, this story was important to me. And from that, starting with that why, I was able to, one, I have lots of guests. I've never had an episode solo. I am like bombarded with people who are interested to actually share their stories. And just to get back to your question, I think the biggest thing about like beginning to speak is it's a muscle. And instead of focusing so much on what I was going to say, I was just really intentional about like, you're just moving this muscle. How can we every single day move this muscle more and more? Because I'm doing it privately. If me and you have a conversation not on Zoom and being recorded, I'm fine. So how can I take that energy, that thought leadership, that expertise, and really just start to share that to a broader audience?
Yeah. And did you find some time of introspection where you really reflected a ton and maybe had some journaling and or specific prompts to get you through that why cultivation? I think there's so many people who struggle with trying to find this overlap between like purpose and passion, or maybe even, figuring out where parts of skill sets they have maybe tie into all those things to even think about, hey, what's the first step I could take forward?
I think we gotta leave room for your gifts. Like, sometimes you want it so perfect and so packaged at the beginning that you don't leave room for like the miracle to happen. Or you don't leave room for, if you believe in God or the universe or whatever it is, that faith piece. If you don't leave room for something outside of yourself to elevate and amplify you, you really miss the point. Like, I was not seeking purpose. I was just being where my 2 feet are planted, sharing my story. I was never seeking passion. It just exuded itself from me. That when you see me and I talk about mental wellness, it's because in my life, I'm really intentional about my own mental health and well-being and my health across all facets. But I'm also transparent in finances may be up and finances may be down, but you don't see a difference in that version of Jas. Physical weight may be up, physical weight may be the perfect version, but you don't see the difference in who I am as a being. My mental health, like I invest in those areas that sometimes it's really hard for people when you want something in a specific way. If you think your purpose is, my purpose is to inspire people, then that means you're someone who inspires the people you work with, your family, little kids. Like you inspire the grocery store attendant. Like, you inspire where you are, and your purpose is then ignited. So it's really hard for me to say, hey, ask this question or ask that question. It really is about being specifically present where you are, and you can see, like, people will tell you who you are because they see who you are. So I knew I was a great speaker from moments of, we should have a podcast, or you said something, or if I get a text and someone says, man, like, people always share with me discomfort. You're sharing discomfort in such a beautiful way that I'm like, yes, I'm on the path. There's moments I'm like, oh my God, am I doing it? And you really are doing it. Even with my strategic advisory firm, I wasn't trying to have a strategic advisory. I just knew I was consulting and doing this kind of X kind of work. And then it was like pivot, but I remained open to be able to. And then the more I worked on things, I was like, is this a thing? And it was like, absolutely. And because the reassurance is in for my business is in the revenue. It's like, okay, now you're bringing in revenue for someone else, the reassurance, without a shadow of a doubt, it becomes this internal prompt of like, yes, this is it. But I may be the individual who's like, maybe stop seeking purpose in the sense of it's somewhere outside of you and just recognize you're intentional and you're purposeful, and it really radiates and gravitates to you, like the thing that you're supposed to do.
Right. I think you brought up a good point too. It's like you gotta let off the fixation of the external, right? The money, the likes, the whether that's fame, the cloud, all that. But it's so hard because I think it's just so ingrained in our society to be fixated on the more, the flash. It's very interesting stuff. In terms of the business consulting side of things, were you in business consulting before you segued into doing your own thing, or what came first, the podcast or the business consulting side of things?
Okay, so I have 12 years in real estate on the operational side of things. So I ended my career in real estate working for a business, like a specialized business development team, doing strategic projects. I didn't know like that would be like work I would also be doing, but applying it in a different way. Strategic partnerships, I was really good at when I was building my passion brand. And I called it a passion because I was like, you're not generating revenue.
Right.
So it's cute. It's passion. It actually cost you money, but I was building brand relationships. I was building my network. So a lot of the things that I did the past 8 years, I was like, oh, this was working for you in a good way. And so in January, I just started to recognize like I don't have a business degree. I went to school for political science and communication. But I knew I wanted to create, right? And so the podcast a year ago started, and I was consistent with that. And this year, my company ended up letting me go, which a lot of people have experienced job loss in 2025. I was applying for a lot of positions, making it to second and third rounds, meeting with C-suite and all of that. That I just, said, what if these interview preps that you're doing, what if all this strategy work that you're doing, what if you did it for you? What are you really seeking? And what I really wanted was security, financial security, safety. And it was like, okay, do you need that from someone else or can you do that for yourself? And these are prompts I think anyone can ask yourself. Yes, I can do that for myself, but it's going to take time. And so I started working on a plan. And what am I good at? What can I do? Well, what is the business model of that? Like a lot of people want to be in business because the freedom of it, right? But yeah. It is time consuming. But for years, I've worked on consistency. I've worked on discipline. I've worked on time management skills. I've worked on a lot of practices that are applicable in the business world. And so now it's time to use all of that to focus in on, okay, what are you doing? How does it make money for you? And apply it over and over and over and over again. And the more I said, okay, this is what I do, and was willing to pivot if things were not going, like I'm always assessing. I look at my year in 12-week increments. And so is it working? Is it not? Let's assess. I am not someone who's like, for a year, let me try this out. Guys, I love that for you, but it doesn't give you, it gives you room to make excuses
Mm.
versus say, okay, let's get really intentional. What's the goal? If I don't reach that goal, was it like, what was the factual thing that happened versus my feelings about the thing that happened? So I hope I answered your question of like, the business was essentially building itself when I had my corporate career, but I was so in tune with the passion that the business woman didn't come out yet. It took for me to the discomfort and having a podcast for it to start to say, hey girl, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time.
So now that you're doing the thing, and congrats. I mean, this show is about, helping elevate people and their well-being, generally speaking, across a variety of aspects. But it's also about telling the story of people who've taken a chance on themselves and stepping outside of whatever the normal confines, perhaps, of society.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's just a very powerful illustration and story. And so congrats on what you're doing, and the inspiration you're providing to others. Now, when you do partner with these companies, these brands you've worked with, what does that look like? What does the health and wellness strategic initiatives you're working with these brands on, and what does that look like day to day?
Well, so the biggest thing is, which I shared before, you have to know your why. And so for me with companies, it's like, what is your why? I, have done the research to know employee well-being, even if it's an individual company, is number one. At the end of the day, for your bottom line, productive individuals within your company is good for business. And so my goal when I come in is to find out, what do we need to implement? What are your initiatives? What are your actual goals? And are they translating how you actually want them to translate? I specifically follow a process that I've created in order to be able to assess that and then apply it. And that when with strategic partnerships, I was able to figure that out because of the 150 brands I've worked with. I was able to come to the table as some people would say, little Jas or my little business or whatever it was, and see my value. You have to know where you stand. And this is anybody, a creative, anyone listening to your podcast looking to bet on yourself. If you don't see your value, no one else will. If you stand 10 toes in what you're good at, I'm good at the strategy aspect and the creative aspect. I don't come in and say, I'm changing your financials. I come in and say, we're looking at wellness, really intentional wellness. And it becomes this win-win for all parties. I was a Lululemon ambassador. I ran run clubs for 3 years here in Dallas. When I was an ambassador, it was really intentional to me to create partnerships that of individuals who didn't look like their Lululemon's typical customer. And I wanted to give them the experience that Lululemon shared that they want for their customers, and bring new people in the front door to feel that, to understand we all connect on one level, like at the same level. We all put one foot in front of the other. We are all able to walk, run, jog, whatever it is. So I translate the message down to a level that's like digestible for you, me, the next person into your life. But it starts with understanding their need and their why.
I love that. I love that. I guess thus far, what has been the biggest challenge or roadblock you've faced?
Oh my God. I will always share this to people. Starting a business You have decided that you no longer want to make reservations at the restaurants. You want to go and, prep to kill your food, go kill it, bring it back, skin it, chop it up. If you are not a carnivore, apply it in a different way, but you do all of the work. And so now, I think the biggest, one challenge has been to not be in my, I have a boss and I am the boss. I think that probably has been the biggest, whose time are you on, Jas? You're on your time. But also stepping out of an employee mindset into a CEO mindset. And I do work with a therapist. I have a business coach and I have 4 advisors who support me. And I will encourage any individual who considers themselves an entrepreneur, a founder, CEO, whatever it is, to seek out support of individuals who have done it. They've trailed the path that you're on. They have a different perspective than you, even the perspective that is really hard for you to navigate. Like if you're not great at financials, at the end of the day, you do want someone who is good at that and encourages you to sharpen that skill set. And also being able to be coachable. Having your own business means you, like a great leader, is coachable and teachable. I think that has been the greatest thing that I could have opened myself up to, is you actually don't know it all and you embrace that. You are really great at what you're good at, but what you don't know, you're willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
And this is kind of ties back to the earlier conversation we had, but you mentioned the biz coach, the support system you have. And that was also a discussion point around perhaps people going through some level of discomfort, in this context of business discomfort.
Yeah.
But I've also seen a lot of stats. Someone was just sharing with me the other day. I think it was a lot of people around, mid 30s and younger don't feel like they even have, in some cases, one close friend or more than one close friend. And so for perhaps maybe more common in people in their mid 20s or so who are maybe struggling with isolationism or loneliness, what type of things would you offer up to them or suggest for perhaps finding that support system if it's not necessarily something that might be, I guess, readily accessible to them, or maybe in the form of friends at the moment?
Yeah. One, don't be so hard on yourself. I often think because of social media, people want a plethora of, one is not enough. More. And it really just takes one. Building your community and defining what that looks like is important. And I say that because then you can create the safety to be vulnerable. At the end of the day, vulnerability is important. If you're looking at it from the business sense or personal sense, because isolation is not healthy. Solitude, there's nothing wrong with solitude, but people confuse solitude and isolation, and they are not the same. And so I love my alone time and I'm in solitude. But if I'm alone and I'm intentionally isolating because I feel some type of shame, blame, grief, frustration, or whatever, and I say, this version of me doesn't deserve to be seen, I have to get to X amount of dollars in my bank account. I got to get to X physical look. I got to my mental health. If I tell myself I don't deserve to be seen as this version, even if she's messy, that's not okay. But I have people who are willing to see me messy and unperfect in business and personal. I've shown up to meetings and been like, man, I was kind of late because I had to get dressed. And someone was like, you could have came in your Pilates clothes, Jas. We didn't need you to. But Jas is
Yeah.
No, I wanted to be cute. Like I wanted to be cute for me, but I've cultivated spaces that accept me for who I am, but it took for me to be vulnerable. And the one thing I do want to share about that vulnerability piece, some people do experience individuals who are weaponizing vulnerability on them and manipulating, their weaknesses, or they're manipulating something where they feel unsafe. I'm not saying go out and the whole world is your oyster of vulnerability and you're supposed to dump every single thing on every single person. That's not what we're saying. You have to be able to regulate yourself and understand, is Dan a safe individual that I can hold this conversation with? Or if I don't necessarily feel safe with them, do I at least feel safe within myself and trust myself enough that if I share this story, my story, I'll be okay? Or do I need to share this because maybe I need saving from someone? A stranger could see you and pour into you in a way. So it takes work, like at the end of the day. And I can't pretend like it's easy. Like it's easy to isolate. Like that's the comfortable thing. But people think it's uncomfortable because they're like, oh, I'm alone and all of this. No, that's the comfortable piece. Actually sharing with people like, hey, I'm dealing with this, or even if you're super like whatever version of you, the uncomfortable thing is exposing yourself.
And in that journey you went on, and it's still probably on, and the hard journey, the hard work, getting to a point where you say, hey, I have my group of friends, I'm not fitting in, I belong, right? Like they don't care how I show up how I show up, and they accept, they rally around, right? And so I'm just thinking about, did all your friends come along on that journey, or like have some friends fallen off along the way? Because I'm thinking of that difference between like belonging and fitting in, and how I think a lot of people work to fit in for a good part of their life and then slowly shift to evolve that over time. But I'm just wondering what that looked like for you over time.
It's listen, we all have to shed individuals. Everybody does not get on the plane with you and elevate. And it's a reality. It's something that I have struggled with, but the individuals in my lives who matter to me, I'll share with them like, hey, how did you deal with this? Or if I do have a mentor or an advisor or whomever, I ask those questions. Like I really stopped feeling shame around certain topics because it's all relatable. But some people will not be forever. And it's okay to grieve that. Like it really, really genuinely is. If that's friendships, like sometimes I think people assume there has to be something tragic that ended, but sometimes you begin to just grow apart in the sense of like you're on different paths. The commonality isn't there. Your likes and interests aren't the same. Your proximity isn't the same anymore. So it's little things that it's like it's okay. There's some friends that there's not proximity there, but the friendship hasn't changed. If we were in the same room and we haven't seen each other in 4 years, the love is still there. And there's people who are within proximity to me and we haven't seen each other. And when you put us in a room and I'm like, we don't even talk about the same thing. I don't like what you like. You don't like what I like. We don't even really know each other, Right. So you have to just like understand where you are in life, and it's not always about you. Like it's not always like this attack on who you are as an individual. Sometimes it's just like you guys are in different places in your life, and it's being a mature adult to say that's okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. I've definitely gathered through a lot of our conversation and also listening to some of your work, the influence of Brene Brown. Yeah. But I'm also curious, like what other, I guess, role models or people that you really follow that you really enjoy their work and kind of aspire to, I guess, kind of work towards their model?
First of all, since you said Aspire, if you guys listen to the Aspire or watch the Aspire podcast with Emma Reed, love and obsessed with her because she's the CEO of Skims and like the Kardashian brands, but just the businesswoman investor. She's also on Shark Tank. I am and I'm always reading books to sharpen my professional but also personal life. So specifically Start with Why with Simon Sinek. I encourage everyone to read that book. The Alchemist, that book is one of my favorites. I love me some Oprah. I love Oprah. And then Michael Bernard Beckwith. He is a spiritual teacher. He has a podcast called Take Back Your Mind, and he interviews some of the most amazing spiritual leaders, practitioners, encouragers, you name it. So I have been blessed to just meet some really amazing people. I'm just daily inspired. Like one of my advisors is Bill McCoy. He runs a security company, and it's like complete opposite, right, of the work I do. But his business lens, he is a huge inspirer for me in my life. So I'm just inspired by everyday, ordinary individuals, So, and I like love all the celebrities, but I said his name because I'm like, man, I hope he listens to this so he can know like you've made a major impact in my life. So yeah, a lot of celebrities, a lot of spiritual teachers, but I encourage everyone. There's probably someone in your life who can make major impact or investment within you that you don't even know.
Yeah. I love that you bring up the spiritual domain because I think it's such an often overlooked aspect of health. I think so many people focus on, the diets or the physical routines, which are obviously important too. And so I'm just curious. I want to kind of dive in with you across a couple of those domains and just kind of get your best practices or little things that you do to help kind of fill your cup in each one of those areas. And so I guess just starting with the spiritual side of things, like what do you do as part of some of your weekly or daily practices that kind of fill your spiritual cup up?
I meditate every single day, between 10 to 15 minutes. I journal several times a week. Like I used to be the daily journaler, but it was at this point where I was like, I don't have much to say. And at this point, I'm just complaining just to complain versus letting things flow. So a few times a week, I'll definitely journal. Prayer is a part of that journaling. And I definitely either watch church or have my form of what church is for me. If that's like running by the water, because it's a physical activity for me, but it's very freeing for my mind and my spirit. So my spiritual practice is really, meditation, prayer. Like within my meditation, I probably say I'm praying every day because within that meditation, there's prayer happening. And then journaling, but I'm not forceful with it in the sense of like, I gotta have something to say. And I'm really big on the power of the tongue. So your words are weapons. Either they're for you or they're against you, but just trying to be really intentional with the words that we speak.
I love that. You read the 4 Agreements?
Yes.
Yeah, be impeccable with your word.
Yes.
What about on the I guess health side of things, physical routines, things like that? What are part of the physical fitness routines you undertake?
So running has been, I shared earlier, I was a Lululemon Run ambassador. Running has been my thing for like almost 15 years now. So I love running. I'm not your sprinter. I have seasons where my pace is faster than it is in other seasons, but running keeps me consistent with my health. The past few years, Pilates has been like my you completely disconnect activity where it's 50 minutes of not multitasking. So it allows me to really shut off and get intentional with my body. As I continue to age, strength training is just really important. So I'm definitely strength training 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. The goal is 3. And for a lot of women out there, like our bone density as we age decreases. So I highly encourage like strength training. Do not assume you're going to be the buff woman or whatever you want your physique to be. You should be intentional with that. But I invest in my physical health daily.
Love that. I love that. And then you mentioned you have therapists on the mental side of things.
Yes, I go to therapy every week.
I love
During
that.
this time, like starting a business was definitely challenging. So I do meet with a therapist every week, and just building something that hasn't existed, you got to be a little bit crazy, you know? So you need to talk to someone. And I think it's important not to always unpack on your friends and family and get maybe that unbiased perspective, but also it allows for you to do the work. A lot of times individuals think they have a growth mindset, but it's just time has passed. And they think because time has passed, that equates to growth. And this is something that I had to learn for myself. Some of us have a fixed mindset. Yeah. And time passes and you're still the same version, still same patterns, still showing up. And so really being able to sit with someone who's going to challenge you and you put into practice new things. And so that is what my therapist does for me is helps me kind of look at that. It's not about sitting in your trauma, in your childhood trauma. It's like my therapist helps me work on what I'm dealing with. And if something from the past did happen that's, triggering that or whatever it is, it's like, what practices do we need to put into place for this version of Jas to keep going and not self-sabotaging or whatever it is? That's not stuff that my friends or my family can really help me with, right? Because they're still going to have a biased lens. So right. I would highly encourage some type of therapist. And if people are seeking that understanding, it's work. Hate to break it to you guys. It's not aesthetics, it's work. There have been times where therapy for me was every single session, full blown tears. Years ago, it was full blown tears. And then there's been times where I'm like, we did not cry therapy. Or we crashed out in therapy today. But hey, So, yeah.
What about on the diet side of things? Are there any particular diet protocols you follow?
I'm experimenting with that. Years ago was pescatarian. I've always been very intentional with my eating and very fresh, not processed. So that's not an issue I have, but eating for my body type and, hormones. That's huge right now for women. And I'm a woman over 30, specifically 35. My body is definitely different. And I'm working on not having body dysmorphia and just being really kind to it to grow and be the best version for myself. So my eating, hydrating, oh my God, hydrating, girl dinners, we're not doing that.
Is that not eating?
Girl dinners are usually like espresso martini and some fudge, but I'm really intentional of getting my protein intake, nutrients, understanding, like, maybe you feel away because you haven't had enough water, so not overindulging with the caffeine. There,
Yeah.
3-4 cups, it's enough. You don't need more caffeine. You probably need to rest. So diet is definitely probably number one, as I have like some cuties and apple, banana at my desk right now. So
For those health markers, the hormone balance, some of the things you mentioned, just tracking the fitness in general, are you just kind of doing the general labs through your physician, or are you working with, I know there's like a litany of companies now that kind of test a wide variety of things, but do you work with them, or do you just kind of work through your general physician?
I've worked through a general physician. I am working on definitely partnering with a brand or something like that, because it is something I'm beginning to be passionate about. And specifically, I share because I've experienced seasonal depression, which a lot of people experience seasonal depression. And it's not just in the wintertime, it's your season of that, depression. But, working with my therapist, it was interesting to see, like, this may actually be that your vitals are, low, and this is low, or this, like, we need to get your nutrients up. And so that really sparked, like, this is, I need to consider that. So, and the businesswoman in me is like, now who do I need to partner with to share this? So yeah, there's some things in play, but yeah, I would suggest there's definitely go to a physician, dietitian, in whatever people do your research, but check in with your body,
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about so much today: shame, fear, vulnerability, business ventures, mental health, physical health, all sorts of stuff. Is there anything that we haven't touched on, or that we could have dived in a little bit deeper, that you would be like super excited to talk about further?
The one thing I do want to leave, like that moment where you're like, dang, I should have said this. I saw a post the other day where a woman shared, and specifically, I'm considering like the political climate and in just the state of the nation. If you right now are going through, because we didn't talk about financial health, right?
Yeah, we didn't. Yep.
If you are going through your season of broke, don't let that make you isolate. Like, we did talk about isolation, but I really encourage people to not in friendships or relationships because of that. Because you may say, well, I'm not able to, if you're experiencing job loss, I'm not, my focus and priority right now is my security and my sense of safety and my home and all of those things. Like, I can assure you, if you shared that to one of your friends who may seem like your party friend, or your always go to brunch friend, or your happy hour friend, yeah, you may not be able to go to brunches and happy hours, but you are able to go on a walk with them. You are able to just sit at their house and have coffee that they make in the Keurig, So explore what your season looks like. And I brought up financial health because it probably is the one area of health that if it's up, we're like, yes, all the other ones flourish. And if it's down, all the other ones are like, oh, but it's not really like it's not really like that, because it's the thing that everybody's searching and wondering, how do I get more money, more this, more experiences. Right. But I do want to encourage people, like, if you're in a season of you're broke, not enough, or whatever it is, to remain encouraged. Let faith lead the way. And if you believe or don't believe, at the end of the day, make sure you have community, because you will get through whatever season you are in. So I know that was random, but I saw that and I'm like, we're going into the holidays, and it is a season of, it can be touchy and grief-filled season, just as well as it's the season of joy and happiness and sparkle. I leave people with your presence is a present. You're just being, just showing up is enough. You don't have to bring anything. You don't have to be a version of yourself. You being there in all your joy and laughter and, kindness and love is enough.
I love that. And I think you're spot on with this time of the year, but also just layoffs and I think a lot of financial concerns across the board, whether it's due to government shutdown for a rather variety of reasons, inflation. I think people obviously could be going through a lot of tough times across the board on the financial side of things. And that does tend to at times deflate the experience with friends and family. And so I think that's a beautiful message to give, much needed right now.
No, listen, thank you. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing with your podcast. I think this is so awesome. So sending all the love to your community, prosperity, just all good vibes and growth,
Yes.
to continue to meet more to continue to meet individuals and connect with people who align with your message.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining, Jas. I appreciate your time, your insights, and everything you shared with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.